Well, as Eric said, I'm Mike Miles. I spent a few years back in the late 90s co-founding a couple startups. One of them had a fairly successful exit, even though 9/11 kind of got in the way. We ended up selling the company to another one of our competitors, a company called Concur. You may have heard of them. Most of the technology that runs Concur at least has some origins in the startup that I helped co-found back in the late 90s. I then moved over to Microsoft for the last, for about 20 years or so, started off in mergers and acquisitions, and then did some corporate entrepreneurship with them, and then moved on to some global development activity. And I retired from Microsoft after a 20-year career about 3 years or so ago. And since then, I split my time between advising and investing in a number of startups. I think I have 8 or 9 startups that I'm involved in right now. And then I teach entrepreneurship at the University of Arizona, which is how I met Eric and became familiar with UACI. So I want to spend just, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes or so talking about TAM, SAM, SOM. As Eric said, probably most of you are familiar with this topic. I think one of the reasons why this topic is so confusing and you learn something new every time is because people's definitions about what TAM, SAM, SOM mean and why they're important change. So I'm going to give you my view. I'll try to leave some time at the end for some Q&A so that you can challenge my view or get clarification on my view. But just note that, you know, if you go to YouTube and watch videos on this topic or talk to Eric or Anita or anybody else about this topic, your mileage is going to vary because perspectives change a little bit. So here's mine. Excellent. I'm going to add a new market definition here as well called the beachhead market. And I'll tell you why I'm doing that in just a second. But each of these topics or names, TAM, SAM, SOM, and beachhead, really are ways to describe market opportunities. And we'll talk about the time horizon and the constraints and so forth as we talk about those market opportunities in just a second. But those market opportunities are most often expressed in terms of dollars that your venture might make in that given market opportunity, or in some cases, users. I've seen some very successful pitch deck express market opportunities in terms of users. And usually that's because they don't yet have a firm grip on their business model. In some cases, it's a social network or some other app platform where they are going to attempt to make money by advertising or a premium model, in which case at the early stage, users are more important than money. But for the most part, as I understand most of your ventures, I think it's more appropriate to talk about TAM, SAM, SOM, and beachhead in terms of dollars and not users. So let's go through these definitions here just real quick. So beachhead market, I define that beachhead market as your initial product launch. You're not intending to make money with that, with your beachhead market, but what you're attempting to do is really dial in your product market fit. And product market fit to me is the intersection of desirability. Do customers love your product? Feasibility, can you actually build it? And viability, can you make money at it? And so a beachhead market in my mind is your opportunity to play around with feasibility, desirability, and viability so you really dial in product market fit before you have a full-blown major launch of your product. So if it's a B2B product, you might just target 5 customers. If it's a consumer product, you might target 500 customers, let's say. But the whole idea, again, is that the beachhead market gives you an opportunity to experiment with the variables that are going to affect your product market fit. The next market definition, the share of market, or sometimes called the service attainable market, the way I describe SOM is that it's your target for the next 3 to 5 years. So you're going to launch your venture, you're going to launch your product, and for the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to target your SOM. And usually that assumes some constraints. It could be supply chain constraints. It could be capital constraints. It could be geographic constraints, or it could be that it's a red ocean market and you have some significant market competition. So share of market, it usually is a 3 to 5 year time horizon overlaid by whatever constraints you're aware of. Now, the service addressable market is the next market opportunity we're going to talk about. And usually, at least to me, that time horizon is 5 to 7 years. And you can start to make some reasonable assumptions about which of the constraints you included in your SOM you're going to start to relax. Like maybe capital is a little bit more available to you, or maybe you're generating a profit already, and so you're self-capitalizing your venture. It could be that you have more control or purchasing power in your supply chain, and so your supply chain constraints start to go away. Whatever constraints you think you can influence, factored by the growth that you're expecting to see over 5 to 7 years, that's what I would include in SAM, in your serviceable addressable market. And then lastly, TAM. TAM is your total addressable market, and usually that's the size of the industry sector that you're targeting. That data is pretty readily available. We'll talk about how to get some of this data here in just a second. But the TAM, instead of bottoms up, the bottoms up approach that we've been taking on Beachhead, SOM, and SAM, usually I see TAM as kind of a top-down metric that is a guesstimate of the industry sector that you're targeting. I don't see questions, anybody raising their hands, but feel free to shout out questions as we go. I'm happy to take them as we go. So the next thing that I think is important is, what questions should your TAM, SAM, SOM attempt to answer? And to me, these are the 4 big ones. These are the 4 big questions that your TAM, SAM, SOM should attempt to answer. The first is, how big is this market? Investors are going to want to know, if they're giving you money, they're going to want to know how big this market potential is. They want to know what their return could grow into. They also are going to want to know how quickly your venture is going to grow. And so the TAM, SAM, SOM model can help describe how your venture is going to grow. What constraints are you aware of to your growth? There might be constraints you're not aware of course, but what constraints are on your radar that you're actively working to understand and potentially mitigate? And then lastly, in particular for your beachhead market and your SOM, what's your go-to-market plan? And I have an example of all these things here in just a second that I'll share with you as well. So when you think about estimating these market opportunities, here's some general approaches that I'll just share with you. The first is, your TAM, as I mentioned before, is top-down. Usually that's your understanding of the industry sector that you're playing in. The one tip, or the one thing that I see happen very often is entrepreneurs will claim that they can get 1% of a given market. They'll just say, hey, you know, the market is big enough and I think I can just get 1%, without doing the bottoms-up analysis. To me, that lacks credibility. So when you're pitching in front of investors and you say, look, we're just going to assume we're going to get to 1%, and you don't have any details behind that, to me, that's a really big red flag that you haven't done your homework. So avoid doing that as much as possible. So TAM is top down. SAM, SOM, and beachhead usually are bottom up. So you take a bottoms up approach to estimating your TAM, your SAM, SOM, and beachhead markets. Wherever possible, use data. There's lots of data available. So you can use government or industry data. I would try to season that with emerging trends as much as possible. For example, the housing market in most places around the country has been exploding for the last 5-7 years or so. Now that interest rates are rising, that growth is going to decelerate considerably, I would guess. And so that's an example of a trend you can apply to kind of season your understanding of your TAM, SAM, SOM, and your pitch deck if you're pitching to investors. I would use dollars, as I said before, as a way to estimate the size of these markets. You can use audience size numbers if the business model is still ambiguous, or perhaps you're an app that has a freemium model or something like that. But generally speaking, use dollars and not users, or not audience size. So specifically when you're estimating beachhead market, I would try to target the smallest market that you can learn from. Your goal, again, in your beachhead market is not to start making money. It really is to start to understand the variables and levers that you have to maximize your product market fit. Do customers love the product? Are you getting feedback that allows you to tune the product offering so the customers love it even more? Are you understanding what's feasible from a manufacturing and supply and support perspective? So focusing on feasibility. And lastly, are you really dialing in your business model so you know how you're going to make money? So beachhead, I really would target the smallest audience size or smallest set of users that you think you can learn from and dial in your product market fit. It doesn't have to be a big number. You're not trying to make money. You're not trying to make, well, you're trying to generate revenue, at least to demonstrate willingness to pay, but you're not trying to be profitable with your beachhead market, generally speaking. Your SOM, I would size your initial market constrained by all of the things that you know that are going to initially constrain your growth. As we spoke about before, it could be supply chain, it could be competition, it could be lack of capital, it could be your ability to hire people. All of those constraints, I think, should be factored into your SOM. Your SAM, on the other hand, you're going to be more sophisticated in 3 to 5 years. You're going to know what constraints you have some influence over, and ideally those constraints will start to relax, and consequently your SAM should be significantly larger than your SOM. And then lastly, as we said before, your TAM, use industry-specific sizing and trend data as much as possible. TAM does not have to be bottom-up, in my view. Okay, all of that was pretty rudimentary, I hope, but what I want to do is actually talk about an example. So I have this brilliant product example. Some of you might have seen this product before, a product called Handerpants. And our idea is that for the over 1 billion people who are tired of the same leather gloves for evenings out, or wool mittens for warmth, or canvas gloves for on the job, we offer a compelling alternative. That is Handerpants, underpants for your hands. Have you guys seen this product before? In the chat or something? Nope. Okay. And hopefully Justin and Ping and Jennifer, you realize that this is not altogether serious. So as I describe the next few slides, you'll realize that some of the numbers that I'm talking about are actually made up. Okay. So Handerpants is the example I'm going to use to kind of illustrate some of the things that I covered before in the previous slides. So my target audience for Handerpants, I'm going to describe it in 2 different ways: demographics and psychographics. Psychographics, also known as jobs to be done. So demographics, I'm going to target construction workers, 20-something socialites who like to go out in the evening, and people who live in cold weather climates. So the intersection of those, the union of those 3 sets is my target market. And those users want 3 things from this glove. They want it to be functional. They want gloves that are warm and they're able to hold up to demanding work conditions. From a social perspective, they want to be perceived as fashion forward. Like, who doesn't want to be seen in the latest glove trend? And then emotional, they want to be confident that the gloves won't make their hands look fat. Okay, all this is still tongue-in-cheek. Okay, understand the product enough, at least? Emma, you got Handerpants for Christmas? That's excellent. Excellent. See, it is a real product. So here's how I want to use that product as a way to illustrate what I was covering in TAM, SAM, SOM. So my beachhead market, I'm just going to target 50 customers. I don't need a lot of customers, as I said before. And given that I have 3 market segments that I'm targeting, I'm going to pick 15 neighbors. I live up in Seattle. Even today, it's in the low 50s right now, so I still would want gloves maybe outside. I'm going to target 25 gala attendees. My wife and I are going to a nonprofit gala tomorrow night, and I'm going to approach 25 of those people to see if I can get them to use my Handerpants product. And then we live in kind of a rural community up here. So I know some of our neighbors own farms and dairies. I'm going to go to them and see if I can't get them to use Handerpants on the job. So that's my beachhead market. Okay, I'm going to charge $25 a pair for these Handerpants. I've done some initial analysis on willingness to pay, and I think that this set of users will be willing to pay $25 a piece. Okay. Now, when I describe my share of market or my service attainable market, I'm going to assume that I have 250K in working capital. Okay, and if my COGS are $5 a pair, that's going to limit the number of gloves that I can actually manufacture. The other constraint that I have is that cotton's not available in the winter. So there's no cold weather market for cotton. So I can't ship gloves in the wintertime for people that are interested in using hand or pants for cold weather. I'm going to assume that I can go after 2% of the fashion glove market, and that the fashion glove market, their willingness to pay is $35. But for that same market, I'm going to assume that I'm going to give away 25% of the product at social events, just because I know that word of mouth in that market segment works pretty effectively. And if I seed that market with 25% of freebies, I know that those users are going to do the job and help market advertise this product for me. And then lastly, I'm going to target about 0.5% of the worker market. And their willingness to pay is quite low. As opposed to $35 a pair, they're going to be willing to pay $20 a pair. So that's how I could describe my share of market. SAM, so the service addressable market, by that point, I expect to be profitable. So I can self-fund. I'm not constrained by capital. I'm making enough margin on my gloves that I can actually afford to build out my own inventory. Between now and then, I'm going to assume that I'll have a cotton alternative for the winter gloves, maybe some new product or material that I can use. I think I'm going to grow to 4% of the fashion glove market, and that their willingness to pay is going to be $50, and I wouldn't have to give away the product anymore. The word of mouth has spread so wide, and the people love the look that they have wearing the hand or pants, that I can charge more and that I don't need to see the market with freebies. I think I'll be able to get 2% of the worker market. And because I've been able to demonstrate that the gloves hold up in tough work conditions, I can charge $35 for a pair by the time I get to SAM. And then finally, because I found a product that is able to support the winter market of replacement to cotton, I'm going to go after 1% of the cold weather market. Okay, so that's the level of fidelity that I think you should be thinking about when it comes to TAM, SAM, SOM, and your beachhead market. Again, this is kind of a playful example, so you can quibble about my specific numbers, but what I really would love for you to take away is the level of detail, the level of analysis that I've done in order to come up with these numbers is something that you should approach as well. And then the last thing that I want to leave with you, remember we had questions that TAM, SAM, SOM should answer. The first one is, how big is this market? So if we go back to this slide, the TAM, which describes the total size of the market, $650 million. How quickly is your venture going to grow? So we said that by year 5 will be about $6 million. Okay, your SOM is a year 5 horizon kind of market definition. We think we're going to grow to a little over $6 million by then. And that by your SAM, which is a 7-year horizon, typically, I think we're going to grow to $55 million. And then the last thing is, what are the constraints to growth? So we mentioned availability of cotton in the winter, limited working capital, willingness to pay for working gloves is considerably lower. And it looks like I missed entering my go-to-market plan, but the go-to-market plan in particular for the beachhead market, we described as I was on this slide. I'm going to target 15 neighbors. I can just go knock on the doors in my neighborhood. It's still cold outside, or pretty cold outside. It's early spring here. And so I think I can place 15 of those units with my neighbors. We're going to a gala tomorrow night, and so I think I can place 25 pairs of gloves with that audience as well. So that's my go-to-market plan for beachhead, at least an abridged version of my go-to-market plan. And I think I'm going to charge $25 a pair. And similar amount of detail in this share of market, go-to-market plan. I can't sell in the winter, as we mentioned. I know that the willingness to pay for the fashion glove market is higher than the worker market. And so a lot of these facts can help inform your go-to-market plan for your share of market as well. Okay, so that's what I have.